What is the nature of the mind? That's a question he posed. What is called mind is a wondrous power residing in the self. So the mind is in pure awareness, in the field of consciousness. It's not in the body like most people think. Because the mind or the ego, which is non-existent, identifies itself with the body, that creates the illusion that the ego is real. It gives the validation of it. Then the thoughts appear to be inside the body. When in fact, when you start to recognize the field of awareness which is you, the direct experience is thoughts appears within a field of space that has no boundaries. And that's what he's pointing, that the thoughts reside in the self, means they appear from the self, in the self, and disappear in the self.
Okay.
Okay? So when I ask where the thought come from, they come from who I am. They come from me. I'm not creating it because the me that I point to is changeless awareness, yes? So where the thoughts appear, when you ask, yes, so when you ask the question where the thoughts appear, you don't even have to answer, you just look at the thought, and when it disappears, if the mind is not active, you remain consciously aware of yourself as pure aware. What is called mind is a wondrous power residing in the self. It causes all thoughts to arise. Apart from thoughts, there is no such thing as mind. Therefore, thought is the nature of the mind. It's like drops of water is the nature of a river. Without a drop of water, no river. If there is a river, there are drops of water. Yes? So the drop of water is thought, and the mind is the stream of thoughts. That's all. Like image after image after image after image, story, movie, however we like to name it. Yes?
So that's the creator of objects, of course.
So let's see what he says. Apart from thought, there is no independent entity called the world.
Apart from thoughts,
There is
there's no independent entity called the world.
So what does it mean?
It is the thoughts. The world is the thoughts.
So world is actually made of
Thoughts.
So now he continues. In deep sleep, there are no thoughts and there is no world. In the state of waking and dream, there are thoughts and there is a world also. Just as the spider emits the thread of the web out of itself and again withdraws it into itself, likewise the mind projects the world out of itself and again resolves it into itself. When the mind comes out of the self, the world appears. Therefore, when the world appears to be real, the self does not appear or reveal. Okay? So when the mind comes out of the self, the world appears. Therefore, when the world appears to be real, yes, so is he talking about the world or thoughts? Apart from thoughts, there is no world.
Yeah, thoughts.
So when the world appears to be real means you identify with the thought, so the thoughts looks identical like the objects of the world.
Yes.
And that's the birth of ego.
This is the illusion that there is an ego, because the ego says that I am a physical body, so the only proof I have an ego is I say, look, and this ego is animated and it has a personality which is really made from, through the body, likes and dislikes. Yes, it's a collection of preferences, of likes and dislikes, and now the mind says, this is me. This is who I am. A collection of likes and dislikes. Okay? So, we continue. When the mind comes out of the self, the world appears. Therefore, when the world appears, and then he puts in parentheses, to be real.
You've identified with it.
Yes. So I identify with the thoughts about it. The self does not appear, which I think that's not correct word. The correct word would be, or closer, more accurate, the self does not shine through, or the self does not reveal, because it doesn't appear and disappear like thoughts. Okay?
It's always there.
Yes, so either it shines through, if I don't believe the thought to be real, it shines through. If I believe the thought to be real, it moved. The reality turned to be the thought, instead of recognizing that the reality
It's
is
pure consciousness.
Yes. It solidifies and it captures all the attention, so that's all there is. Okay? So, let's say I'm in this room, and I don't have it. This room, it captures all my attention. I tell you, my whole world is this room. Somebody says, okay, let's come up. And then he takes me to the roof. And I said, whoa, there's so many...
So much more.
houses, there's so many buildings and so much concrete. I thought it's just this box. So what it is my vision was able to see so much, yet if I step away, the vision opens up. So stepping away, it's like going up. So if I'm on the land, on a property, I see so much, there's trees. Now I go to second floor, I see more. Now there is stairs going 50 meters high to a place that I can, suddenly I see the whole forest. Yeah? So basically rising above thought, which is your nature, because your nature is beyond thought, behind thought and prior thought, enables you to open all the boundless awareness. When the attention is narrowed on a thought and it appears to be real, it means it is an object, it's objectified. It captures all the attention, then that's my world for me. That's the reality, yet it's the false notion of reality. It's not the reality. When the world appears to be real, the self does not appear. And when the self appears, here in parentheses shines, so when the self reveals, shines, the world does not appear.
Yeah.
And if one goes and explores the experience, even for a moment, let's check, you just stop for a moment and you shift your attention to that which is absolutely still. Just and recognize that there is a stillness, a silence that is changeless. Then the only experience that the silence is the reality, because that's the only real experience. We undoubtedly and we cannot deny our experience. Isn't it? And even let's say we have a thought, so let's watch again. So we are being still for a moment, because our nature is stillness actually. And then wait until there's a thought. Be interested to see when a thought appears. And explore if you experience the thought or experience yourself aware, boundless, changeless.
Experience myself aware of the thought.
So the thought appears, yet you don't really experience the thought, you only remain with the experience of yourself. So the only reason why the thought appeared to be experienced, because it derives the real experience that is you. And the experience, so far, follow?
No, I didn't understand quite that last sentence. The only reason...
The thought appears like I experience it because I am inside the thought as awareness,
yes.
Isn't it?
Mm.
I am inside the thought as the experience that is pure, yet if the thought objectified, then it captures the attention and I overlook that I am the experience that is not objectified and not a thought.
Happens very fast.
Yes. Except that way we can really understand that we only experience ourselves. And when we experience a thought is because we are inside the thought, isn't it? Yet it's like we are inside and it boxes us.
Yes.
Yet a thought which is bound, it has a boundary, it's a name, yeah? So the thought can never box the space of awareness, yet the attention just narrows to that box. And the habit to believe that box to be a real object. And the habit to believe that the objects of the world are real. And actually, if we go back and what he's pointing, apart from thoughts, there is no independent entity called the world. So when I identify as an object, body, then all the world, the external world, is real. Now, I don't realize that I don't identify with the object. I identify with the thoughts about the object. I get attached to thoughts about objects. I don't get attached to any object. I can't even. So now the thought is objectified and I'm conditioned to believe that the objects are real. And I think that I identify with a real object, yet I identify with an objective thought inside the mind, and it appears in the field of pure consciousness, and I am that field which is inside also that objective thought. And then I feel that I reduce myself to a thought, to an object, to an entity, when in fact I am free, I'm boundless, even when there is a thought, and even when there is no thought. Just like we look at the space. This room traps the space, isn't it? Is the space really trapped? Does the space lose anything? Is it affected by anything? And now we ruin this room. Did the space free itself? Does
It's
it
just
get?
always there.
Yes. So the field of awareness, which is who I am, is like that, is the same. When one persistently inquires into the nature of the mind will end leaving the self as the residue. Yes? And if we look at inquiry, inquiry can be mentally, by asking a question, where is the thought arise from? And after the question, you pause and you look. The looking is an inner looking. Yes? Because you're the ultimate seer, so you always see. When you see a thought, there's a sense that there is a you and a thought, duality. Yet when the thought subsides after the question, okay, when the question completes itself, before another thought appears, you as the seer just sees yourself.
Yes.
So inquiry into the self means the inquiry leaves you as the self as a residue.
Yes.
Say it again.
Inquiry into the self is putting the attention on awareness. Yet if the mind is active and it captured the attention, yes, the attention, it's like almost my attention went there, yeah, because awareness is aware of itself only. So means in awareness there is the attributes of attention, yet awareness, pure awareness is attributeless. Yes? Yet it has that awareness, right? That is aware of itself. So anything that is in contact with that awareness, it derives that awareness, that attention. So a thought cannot be aware of another thought that is no longer there. A thought can be aware of another thought that is not there via memory.
Okay.
Yes? And then the thought can be aware of the change in the physical eyes or the five senses. And the senses can be aware of objects external. Yes? So what happens is a rundown of the light of awareness. Awareness is aware of itself, so when a thought appears, it derives that awareness, so now it is aware of the senses. And then it derives that awareness, so the senses are perceiving objects. So it's basically all awareness through mediators. That they derive the light of awareness, which is its awareness is aware of itself, means its attention only on itself. So if something comes and only can pay attention to something else, is due to awareness. This is how the mind even can put the attention on anything, just because awareness is attentive to itself only. This is its nature. Awareness is a conscious entity. The body is not a conscious entity. The mind is not a conscious entity. The only conscious entity is awareness itself. Okay? So what is derivatives? If I do I take orange and I make orange juice, the orange juice is derived from the orange itself. Yeah? So the thought derives the awareness from awareness. And now it says, I am self-aware. I am a conscious entity. I am aware of the senses, and through the senses I'm aware of the physical body, and I'm aware of the whole universe. external universe. So I am a conscious entity. This is what the mind is arrogantly doing, thinking, when in fact none of it is true. It's only awareness is aware of itself, and anything that comes in contact with it, means appears within it, derive that awareness from it, and says, I am this conscious entity. Because we go back to where he started. He said, what is called mind is a wondrous power residing in the self, the field of awareness. Yes? So when a thought appears, it right away derives the light. Because the light is everywhere, right? It's not in one particular place. So anywhere the thought appears, the light shines through it. The light that goes through it is not affected. Yet any thought, the way it is painted, now the light enables for the colorings of the thought to be seen, being projected. Okay? It goes, and give another analogy. If we take a clear crystal, yes, and we put it on a red cloth, the crystal turned to be red, yet it remains clear, unaffected, it never changed. Yet it took any color you would put underneath it. Awareness is the same, it is pure, so any thought that appears within it, it would take its name and shape, yet it will remain nameless and shapeless.
That's a beautiful way of putting it with the crystal. It's very clear.
And then it makes, once it takes the name and the shape, and remains nameless and shapeless, because this is who I am, I experience that I have a name and a shape.
Identify.
Because now the natural state of being is that when I experience myself, I experience an identity. That I am this awareness. Because it's the innermost being, this is who I am.
I am that.
Yes, so the natural state of being is identifying itself as itself. Because this awareness is everywhere. When a thought appears, still I have this innate, innermost experience that I identify as awareness, yet the awareness appeared to take name and form, so that identification is inside the thought, and I identify to be a separate entity. So now when I try to get rid of identifying with it, stop identifying with the thought, I experience that I can't. Because the true identity is inside the thought, isn't it? Yet if I would see that, discriminate, would be able to see that the thought is not true, then instantaneously there's no identification with the thought, like I am a thought.
So key is discrimination.
Yes, without discrimination, the mind cannot wake up from the delusion that it created itself. Because it forgot and got it mistaken, got confused.
So if you remember, even no matter what, you remember, everything continues, yet you remember.
So what in Hebrew the word is schira atzmit, which is self-remembrance. Self-remembrance means you experience yourself as yourself. This is self-remembrance, yet it's not in the mind or memory of the mind, remembering I am that. It's not the mind reminding itself, I am pure consciousness. This, the mind reminds itself. Pure consciousness doesn't need this reminder, right?
It's
Pure
the mind
consciousness,
remembering itself.
yeah, this is one layer of remembrance.
Mhm.
The true remembrance of self is recognizing, knowing yourself as yourself
And it's through experience.
only. We'll continue. When one persistently inquires into the nature of the mind will end leaving the self as the residue. Means, if truly the mind inquires, there is not a question whether it will return and subside into awareness.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Yeah. Otherwise, he would not be able to write the statement that way.
Hmm.
He would write it maybe or sometimes, yet it's not possible because when the mind inquires into your true nature, the mind basically is moving towards you, so the only thing that can happen that it disappears into you. Now, what the mind does anyway, and if we go back, apart from thoughts, there is no such thing as mind. If we look at a thought appears within the field of awareness and disappears into the field of awareness. So it's not something that I have to do from the thought point of view to appear and disappear. So if I can see closely the thought, it appears and disappears, so it returns to me. It's not, and what happens, the mind says, I have to practice a lot for the mind to return. When I practice a lot, means I sustain activity of the mind to keep appear and disappear, appear and disappear, appear and disappear, appear and disappear, and fix the attention on it. Yet if I don't practice, because any practice takes time, movement of thought, and any practice takes space, right?
And pure consciousness is not time.
So if I don't practice, what happens? Thought appears and disappears, I remain. If I fix the attention on that, I remain. And then within the field of awareness, thought appear and disappear. Appear and disappear.
So you don't need to practice.
Right.
You're there.
Yes.
Wherever there is, you're there.
I am.
All the time. I am.
I am it.
I
I am.
All the time. Full time. And that's what I meant by you just carry on.
So
Yeah.
it's like holding the attention. It's staying with this recognition. What does it mean? It means recognize when I think that I am a separate entity.
I am a separate entity.
And then my attention is already captured
Is it true?
in the thought. Or who is this separate entity?
Yes.
Where does it appear? And you look, because the question, where does it appear? It's 4 thoughts,
Yes.
right? Which would be the last thought?
Appear.
Yes. So after that thought, you watch that thought, what does it have to do?
It disappears.
Subside. If there is no other thought that fills up the space, who remains? The seer,
Yes.
which is always sees. Yet, the seer has no duality. the notion of duality is because the seer illuminates every thought that comes into contact of the light, isn't it, that appears. And because I am inside that thought, I think that there is I and there is a thought, duality. It's inside the thought, the notion of duality. Because I am as pure consciousness, not a thought, and I identify myself as pure consciousness. When the thought appears is not pure consciousness, then there is a notion of duality.
That's what duality is.
Yeah, except there is no duality, it's just an appearance of a thought. It's not who I am.
No.
The thought is a phantom. The experience is I am, not as a thought.
That's the nature that's the nature. And that's why we call everything out there nature.
Yeah.
That's why the birth of the word nature.
Yeah,
It's the nature.
It's actually has nothing to do with external nature.
Yeah.
It's like we wanted to go out to be in nature today. Go inside and you rest in your true nature.
Just save a few dollars.
And we go far to remain in the most inmost intimate nature of who we are. We go far out to be the most close.
Yes.
Why don't I stay close?
I don't know. Why don't you stay close?
Yeah.
Question, sort of, question. So that going out and coming back to where you need is called fun. You know the word fun?
Yeah.
That going out and coming back is called fun.
Okay. Let's check what Ramana points about, how he calls it. Yes.
Yeah.
In a moment, let's see
Okay.
what he's writing about this.
Fun or no fun.
So, what is referred to the self is the Atman. It's just another name that they call it. And now he continues. The mind always exists only in dependence of something gross. Means
Fun
it
is
has to identify itself with an object because it believes it is an object, right? It cannot stay alone. It is the mind that is called the subtle body or the soul. And here they call it jiva also. Doesn't matter. It's the subtle body, means all the identification is in the subtle body.
I think it's confusing. What? Subtle, you know.
So thoughts,
Yeah.
objects.
Yeah.
We come back to clarify.
Yeah.
Mind and world,
Yeah.
external. Internal is subtle,
Yeah.
external is gross. We
Right.
just clarify with bringing few more words that we see that it's synonymous. So we will see internally where the words are pointing. And the words have to point back to who I am, back to the subtle, because the exploring and examining is of the thoughts. We don't examine the objects of the world. Because the moment we examine the objects of the world, we believe the object is real. This is a habit already.
It's the nature of putting attention to it. It's just the nature of what happens.
What happens when I want something and I get what I want, or the object that I want, the desire is gone, and there is an opportunity to have a glimpse of that which remains, which is me, prior to thought.
But
And I'll say, but, yes, because there's a veiling there, because I believe that I'm happy because I got the object. Yeah? And the fifth covering, which is the body, which is an object, covers me to see that the happiness is due to a gap of no thought or absence of desire. The mind is habitually will keep going out chasing its desires to fulfill the objects of the world to rest in happiness.
That's why there's no end to that.
There is no end like this. So the mind has to turn back and realize that it's within. It has no connection to any objects of the world. And if we go and see this paragraph that we read, he said, in deep sleep there are no thought and there is no world. And in deep sleep, when nobody dreams, yeah, so they call it also dreamless state, the experience of everyone that they are happy, or they can report for sure that they didn't suffer after they wake up. Nobody ever was disappointed from being in deep sleep, dreamless state. The only time the mind reports he was not happy is when it was having stressful or negative or bad dreams. And even if it was having very active, great dreams, one wakes up and says, I had, this night was very, very active to me. There was not enough rest. So I get up exhausted because the mind was actively dreaming. So we can see that when there is no contact with any objects of the world, we always experience happiness. The thing is that in deep sleep, there is ignorance and bliss together. The ignorance is that I don't remember and I don't know what happened. And the bliss, I had a good night's sleep. I slept happily afterwards. I can think about and say. So basically, this doesn't help one at that state to wake up. When one wakes up to their true nature, they remain awake in the waking. It carries into the dreaming, and then in the deep sleep, so one remains awake throughout the three states. So it starts from the waking and permeates into the other two states, and not in reverse.
You're aware during the deep sleep. When you wake up, do you remember because you were aware during the deep sleep?
You were only of yourself, so it goes like this. Just to have a glimpse. You recognize who you are, awareness, and your attention is on it, means the mind doesn't capture the attention. Now thoughts appear, it's like dreaming, right? So, yet you remain with the experience and then the senses shut down. Still you're aware of if thoughts appear. If it doesn't capture the attention, there is only awareness. When there is no thought, it's like deep sleep. So now you remain, in a way, it looks like the states are moving, yet any state you are there.
Okay.
Yes, because you are in the substratum.
Yeah.
So it's not so mystery like the mind imagines it to be. It's just that when you wake up to who you are and you rest, you're rooted in who you are, you see waking, the thoughts in the waking state and the thoughts in the dreaming state, it's the same. And when there's no thought, it's just like deep sleep.
Okay.
Yet the only difference, your experience that you're aware of yourself only. You're awake.
Yes.
And this awareness never sleeps, yeah? It's not physical and it's not mental. So it never rests because it never moves. So it's always at rest. So we can stop with this.
I want to go to the toilet.
We'll go out to eat.
Everything is possible.